I was trying to figure out how the hell to make this an interesting game, and I realized I think I have to move from the fourth quarter up to the first quarter. We have to go in reverse because for the last 2 weeks, these games have been god-awful boring until the fourth quarter when they get pretty exciting. And, last week it was all about the offense in the fourth quarter. This week it was about a defensive letdown, but then an offensive field goal drive to seal the game. So let's just start with that first series, and we can listen to D'Amico a little bit, listen to Davis a little bit, and figure out what the hell this team's going to do in just 4 days against the Buffalo Bills. Here's the final touchdown drive. Davis Mills got the ball to Dalton Schultz, who was playing on maybe 3 healthy fingers and nothing else in his body. But then he hit this 3rd and 16 play to Nico Collins. Just hit the honey hole right there between the safety and the corner and cover 2. D'Amico drags his toe. Beautiful play or Nico dragged his toe. Nico had a very, very good day. The Texans finally, these are the only running highlights you're going to see. This is pretty much the only time they ran the ball consistently when they needed to, was on that final drive. T'Vondre Sweat wasn't in the game as far as I could tell at that point, and I think that had a big part to do with it. This offensive line, they've got some questions, as we know, as they continue to shuffle people in and out of the guard spot in a rolling tryout to see what the hell they have that they didn't address in the offseason. The 2 guys who were vying for the left guard spot for the entire first half of the season are now not worthy of playing at all. So we can have a 375-pound right tackle who's coming off of a patellar tendon tear out there at right tackle and move Titus Howard down to guard. If you missed this game, you just watch the fourth quarter, okay? Here's Davis on whether he enjoys these high press. He had some big plays on 3rd and long today, as he did last week. He's been pretty clutch in a lot of these big moments, like that 3rd and 16 to Nico. This is Davis on whether he enjoys high-pressure moments.
Yeah, they're fun. I think everything kind of slows down. The field, the space opens up, and when you can settle in there and you know exactly what your process is, you know exactly what the play that's being called is, and you can especially late in the game, I've seen the defense the whole entire game at this point, so I know most of their calls, their disguises that they've already showed, and you can start using the stuff in your mind to anticipate and play even faster.
I really like that from Davis. That was, the value of having a veteran backup quarterback is that ideally, you should be able to start to see things. He knows the calls. That play, he read cover 2, and, the Titans do I don't know if they do a good job of it, but they disguise their looks a lot. Having Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat in there as well as Arden Key makes them a better defense than perhaps they look statistically. I'm trying to remind myself, look, at the end of the day, you've got your backup quarterback in there, and you got to be happy just to get a win, and the offense shouldn't look like it's in its prime. The problem is that when we had the starting quarterback in there, without blaming CJ specifically, it's just the offense as a sum total for the first half of the season didn't look a lot different a lot of the time than it did there, other than those moments like versus the 49ers and the Ravens when they looked absolutely brilliant. We'll get to CJ Stroud later when we talk about the concussion protocol a little bit. This is a Titans touchdown drive that preceded that one. For those of you who watched the game, you're going to understand exactly what's going on. For those of you who didn't, at this point, the score was 13-6, right? Yes, 13-6. And the first thing that happened on 3rd and 10, a bogus pass interference call on a non-catchable ball with just some simple hand fighting that shouldn't have been called. But whatever. There's a penalty on this play that didn't affect the scramble. The Texans it's something they've done in the fourth quarter versus offense they've had a good run against for 3.5 quarters. They allowed a long scramble. And then Kamari Lassiter kind of just gets a step late on a nice route combo, and Akwanko, the tight end, gets a deep 50-yard reception. They score a touchdown. This is the big concern about this defense, as immaculate as it is. Some of these letdowns in the fourth quarter, some of it I excuse by, hey, look, the Texans had just gone 3 and out twice in a row. This is where it got really, really boring in the middle of the fourth quarter again, because both teams traded 3 and outs. They went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Like the punters just should have engaged in one-on-one combat to settle the whole thing. But then all of a sudden the Titans took off. Here's D'Amico on the 3rd down defense.
Yeah, the guys are playing together. Thought we did a good job on third down early on, and later in the game we let some third downs get out that are unacceptable. So I feel like we can still finish better. Even there at the end, we can't allow them to get in the touchdown and drive down the field. We allow 2 big penalties, right? We allow the quarterback to escape the pocket again. Like we got to do a better job of not allowing them to be in that position.
Yeah, as Jimmy Wynn pointed out there, there was a great throw by Cam Ward. What I feared in this game was exactly what happened, which is they came out and Cam was getting rid of the ball really quickly. It's Titans fans who are here via the algorithm, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons the previous staff got fired was because people tired of just seeing this dink and dunk version of Cam Ward. So then they tried something different, and now we're back to square one where they're saying, hey, with a rookie quarterback, let's get the ball out of his hands quickly, get him into a rhythm. And that's exactly what he did. I've got very high standards for the defense. I was in the first half, when the score was still 3-0, mind you, I was like, boy, they're seeping too many yards to this Titans team and this rookie quarterback. Cam Ward had like 119 yards passing in the first on into the second half, but they were doing a good job of getting him into a rhythm. The one big play that put the Texans up by a touchdown was this Will Anderson sack. Let's see if I did. Okay, so there's Will Anderson. Let me back it up a little bit. There's Kamari Lassiter is blitzing off to our left, and this is just a great combination of the committee sack. I'll play it in full real time first. Like, the entire squad's doing a good job on a 6-man blitz, but watch Will. Everything that he's talked about over the last 2 years improving, the last 2 off seasons, first, his hand placement is immaculate right there. And then, remember he talked about separation, getting his separation at the top of his rush. Watch the separation. That was 2 off seasons ago. We talked about that. And then this past off season, he talked about how he has to finish at the quarterback with the strip sack. And he worked on it, hand-eye coordination. Didn't even need that much hand-eye coordination, but got the ball out. And then also, it was just like the first guy, boom, like a shot, out competing poor Daniil, who only had 1.5 sacks on the day after his 3.5 last week. That was a good moment. And D'Amico talked about Will Anderson.
Yeah, Will is a dynamic playmaker for us, and that's what we need in the game. Like, it's about the players making plays, and our playmakers showed up, and Will is definitely one of those guys. For him to take the ball, to get us in a short field right there is something we've been harping on and talking about, and Will comes up with another sack, forced fumble recovery. Huge play for us.
I think the big time players that made big time plays in this game. I don't want to leave Nico Collins out of the mix here. Nico Collins caught 9 of his 10 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown, including 5 catches on 6 targets over 10 air yards for 63 yards and a touchdown. I think it was the touchdown drive in the second half, the first one where, the only touchdown drive. Exciting game today, everybody. This heavily featured Nico Collins on this. And, I mean, Davis did some good things in this game. It was the lack of a run game, but that hurt them as an offense. The Titans were blitzing a lot, and I think pretty effective at it. That play right there annoyed me because I thought they should have challenged it. The spot was just horrendous, but then he hits Nico Collins for the touchdown. So as we've seen, Davis and Nico have a really good connection. Watch this Jaden Higgins one. Okay, so he goes out, and I don't have the other angle that you could see from the broadcast, but you can see his foot is still in there. I mean, and that damn Chris Myers on the broadcast acted like didn't even note that the spot was wrong or anything. But they should have challenged that. But instead they had challenged, I don't know if they're gun shy. If you didn't watch the game, they challenged a touchdown by Christian Kirk in the first quarter. At the end of this drive, I'll go ahead and play it. I don't have the one they challenged on. But it was textbook going back to the Dez Bryant rule where everybody learned. Remember, we argued about it for like 2 years about what was and wasn't a catch. And now we've all come to a place where we understand you have to control the ball through contact with the ground. I feel like we all understand that, but whoever was telling D'Amico to challenge that play in the booth was dead wrong. And we could see immediately with the first replay that it shouldn't have been challenged. Anyway, I digress. Let's see. Here's the first. I don't think I put the first drive in. I wanted to put it in. Whatever. Here's Cam Ward's first drive, just to give you a picture, which is when I was starting to get a little bit nervous because Cam Ward was getting rid of the ball really quickly. Some missed tackles at times. The absence of Jalen Petrie is really a concern. I'm not as worried about it versus the Bills as I will be against the Colts and the Chiefs. I'm more, and then so that's when they kicked their field goal. Texans missed a field goal. But there were times when I think they picked on Miles Bryant. I think there's times with Kamari Lassiter having to move into the slot, having various other guys play outside. Everything was just a little too soft, and the Texans progressively, it felt like, started to blitz more aggressively as the game went on, and they realized, all right, we can't get away with playing these soft shells as much when Cam Ward's doing a good job of getting rid of the ball. The thing that versus a better, more polished quarterback that the Texans would really have been in trouble today was that Cam Ward did misfire on a lot of deep shots, a lot of intermediate shots too. He had some opportunities that he just couldn't connect on today. Versus Josh Allen, obviously that's going to be more of a concern. Here's D'Amico on the focus that it took to turn the season around from starting 0-3. First game they won, remember, was back in Week 4 versus the Titans.
For us to turn it around, it's just about being laser focused, like focus on the task in front of you. Can't do anything about how we started, but again, it's the mentality about our season, about each game. It's all about how you finish. And if you finish the right way, you're going to be in a good spot. But it's just remaining focused on the task and the target in front of you.
Yeah, and I don't want to lose sight of I find myself after these close games, and it's disappointing, not that it's a victory, obviously, but you're hoping for just a beat down of the Titans. And that's where you gotta find some balance between the Mills mania and the reality of the situation, which is I think Davis Mills is, for right now, I think he's exactly what you want in a backup quarterback. I think he's a veteran who can come in and run the offense. He's made some really nice plays in the last couple of weeks. I don't want to downplay that at all. Some of these third and longs have been spectacular. The one that we started off showing today was really, really good. When CJ is plugged in and feeling it and seeing things in this offense, which I think he really was starting to get, it's a different level. And these next 3 games are going to be really interesting. When it comes to the concussion protocol, because I know a lot of you guys have questions about that, and I have promised to do an instructional video at some point. But the basic thing you need to know is players, when they're in the 5th phase of the program, that's when they practice full contact and have to show that they're symptomless after a full contact practice or 2 practices. The people have the question, all right, well, what happens now because it's a Thursday night game? They might not even have a full practice. You simulate contact in those situations, which they have to do with quarterbacks anyway, because quarterbacks don't get hit in practice ever in season. So they'll do things. It's up to the independent neurological consultant to decide exactly what that workout looks like, but they could do things like tackling somebody onto a mat or falling onto a mat. They have the quarterbacks kind of run through drills, whipping their head around. They have to call out coverages or plays as they're running and exerting themselves, trying to simulate the both the mental and the physical stress of playing quarterback. So theoretically, he could have been doing that back in Houston today to start to get through that. So we just don't know until we get an update tomorrow or Tuesday about how they're practicing, if CJ's practicing. Jalen Petrie, likewise, same thing. The Thursday night game isn't a barrier to them coming back just because they're not going to have practices. I read way more about the concussion protocol over the last few days than I ever than I have before, which I should have like 3 or 4 years ago, but I'm starting to understand it. You guys got to bear with me. I had a lot of undiagnosed concussions back in my day. Here's D'Amico on the question of the day, the offensive line.
Yeah, we'll look at the film and see how we looked on the offensive line. But again, we felt like our best 5 guys had to go out there and play, and for the most part, felt like we held up well.
Yeah, I don't okay, we thought we handled it well. I don't think the pass protection was as much of an issue as the 4 sacks might suggest. There were some ugly sacks, like that first field goal drive here. I'm going to pull this up. The first, what was ultimately a field goal drive, after the Texans got the benefit of, I think it was a fair penalty. It was roughing on the center by Jeffrey Simmons, and he was arguing that all he did was hit him with his hip, but it was an aggressive hip check. It was like hockey or roller derby. It was a pretty damn aggressive check. But they drove down the field. It was a beautiful drive, and all they got out of it was a missed field goal, and that was frustrating. So let's see. That's the first Texans offensive drive. I can't remember how many plays this was. This was a 9-play. No, it was 15 plays, 53 yards, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. A couple of really nice third down conversions. Then you get Xavier Hutchinson, and then and Woody Marks, who's really good in pass protection as a rookie, just couldn't pick this one up. So like here, the offensive line wasn't the issue here. They picked up the blitz pretty well. Woody Marks just got a little bit of a bad angle there. And Davis, I mean, the guy, remember on play action, true play action, you've got your back to the defense. He whips his head around, but Davis was thinking that the protection had the blitz handled, which it did, and he took the sack there. It took another couple sacks today that knocked him out of range, but I wasn't as concerned about that as I was with the run offense in general. And I think the whole 1-2 punch of Woody Marks and Nick Chubb is something they're going to have to figure out. They're not going to have the same challenge defensively versus the Bills that they had versus the Titans, just in that the Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons factor. I mean, this is the second year in a row now. This year the Texans win both these games, but last year that game at NRG Stadium, that's when you really realize, man, they got to do something about some of these interior offensive linemen. And the solution, yet again, is, I mean, how many times are we midway through the season or late in the season? You know what? We should have handled this last year, the year before that, but let's just go ahead and move Titus Howard on down. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. Does anyone else feel like Kaylee has improved over the season? Feels like there's a change, but similar results on play calling. I think there's a couple things going on. One is I think that they've used pre-snap motion more effectively. Last week especially, there were some wide open shots that Davis had that were a result of pre-snap motion. There are actually some nice runs last week too that were a result of pre-snap motion, and some of it may have caught them by surprise last week, the Jaguars by surprise. Maybe the Titans were better prepared for it. There was a really nice run last week where Dalton Schultz went in motion right before the snap, and the safety that was in man coverage on him tracked him really aggressively, and Dalton had left with real urgency, and it created a wide open lane right up the middle. I think some of those things are better. I think fundamentally they're better on the offensive line. It's just that it's the style of runs that they're using a lot of times when they run duo, where it's just a double team up into the lap of the linebacker. Some of that's just brute force and power, and I don't know if the Texans match up well against teams like the players like Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, and that's a tough one. And it's going to be interesting to watch the all-22 on this. I don't want to overly crush the offensive line until we see exactly what was going on. I thought, there have been times where Woody Marks looks like he's still getting his bearings in terms of some of his reads, and I don't know if that looked like it might have been a factor today, but we'll see after we see the better better film. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of that today too, Mike. I'd rather see a sack than an interception. I think Davis was much more careful with the ball. I mean, if you look at that, Nico Collins, remember we were wondering last week, I was worried about whether Davis was really forcing the ball to Nico Collins, sometimes at great peril. 9 of 10 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown. That's not forcing it. I mean, he caught 9 of his 10 targets. They were all pretty good. Some of the throws over the middle, I know Chris Myers called one of them a risky throw. I throws he made over the middle that were incomplete, it was when linebackers were in coverage, and I thought he placed them pretty well and with a lot of velocity too. So it was either going to be a reception or a deflection, but probably not an interception. So him taking care of the ball today, when ultimately it comes down to really one of the key plays in the game being that Will Anderson strip sack and recovered fumble. I'm okay with it. And it's an ugly win. If this is the kind of win that you'd gotten if you had picked up the Bucs game way back when, or one of those other close score games, I wouldn't be as uneasy about it because they would have established more versus good opponents. But right now, you've got that one victory versus a playoff caliber team. You've got 3 opportunities here coming up to take care of that. And I am genuinely excited about this Bills game, especially because the Bills have a lot of the same issues they had last year when Josh Allen came in and had the worst game of his career. He doesn't have a bunch of receivers. Why am I blanking on the slot? Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir, he does have this year, which he didn't have last year. Remember, he didn't have Khalil Shakir or anybody basically on the outside. He still doesn't really have a lot of weapons on the outside, but he does have Khalil Shakir. That's where it'd be nice to get Jalen Petrie back. I'd like them to be able to just line up in their normal Jalen Petrie playing his exotic star position, which sometimes is in the slot, but they do a good job of disguising it and everything. You can move Kamari down inside when you want to for Khalil Shakir or Derek Stingley, or have him track Khalil Shakir. That matchup is good as long as Jalen Petrie is there and they don't have to move too many pieces around. I'm going to call it a night. Early day tomorrow. You should watch Payne and Pendergast in the morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I feel better about this game already. I do. And it's a quick turnaround. You only got time. Here's Davis. Here's Davis telling you how to do the quick turnaround.
It's quick. It's really just today. Watch the film on the plane, get good rest, recover, and then we're starting tomorrow on the Bills.
There you go. Starting tomorrow on the Bills, okay? You got 3.5 hours, and then we'll be on to the Bills. We're on to Buffalo in Houston. We're on to Houston. Let's do it.